أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Jazakallah khairan to all of you for attending this very short webinar on how to deliver a powerful presentation. And I'm delivering this specifically to our trainees team because, alhamdulillah, the project has grown from being just in one city to now 4 cities. And we have many different people presenting. And I'm quite confident in our content. Our content is good. But the problem is, we might not be delivering that content in the best way possible. And delivery of content is absolutely key. I'll give you one example. Everyone knows that the most authentic book in Islam after the Quran is what? It's Sahih Bukhari. Everyone knows that. Now, in Sahih Bukhari, the hadiths that are in there, it's not like those hadiths didn't exist before. They definitely existed. In fact, they exist in the other sunan as well. But what Imam Bukhari did, which was head and shoulders above everyone else that came before him, and everyone else who came after him, was he presented that information in a way that was easy for everyone to understand, easy for everyone to digest, easy for everyone to reference in the best possible way. That is the power of presentation. So it's so important that we know we have very good content in the trainees team and in any other of our projects. But if we don't present it correctly, we're not doing ourselves the best, giving ourselves the best chance of succeeding. So I teach communication skills at Bartson London as an SSC. And over the years, I've developed a few tips. And you'll find a lot of these online, but I'm hoping that we can implement these as we go along. So how do you go from this? This is your typical Islamic talk. At most masjids, probably having a lot more of these in Ramadan. You see everyone sitting there. Half the people are asleep. Half the people wish they were asleep, wish they were sitting next to the pillar so they could, sleep more comfortably. No one seems engaged. It looks like people are going through an ordeal. And now compare it to this. This is a TED Talk, and most of you have heard about them, where people are paying hundreds of pounds to attend, and there's a waiting list a mile long, where presenters are delivering short presentations, 18 minutes. I bet most khutbahs in the world aren't that long. They're longer than that. But yet, in these TED Talks, their content is nowhere near as good as the content that we have as Muslims. The Quran, the Sunnah, the stories, the Seerah, the message that we have. Yet, what's the difference? In one group, you're falling asleep, and in the other one, you're engaged, you're listening, you're taking notes. It's put on YouTube, it's shared 1,000,000 times. The difference is not the content, the difference is the presentation. So how do we go from one to the other? So here are a few simple tips. First, we should follow the advice of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, we always think Sunnah, is just limited to certain actions. Eat with your right hand, or it's Sunnah to put the right shoe on first, or it's Sunnah to wear attar on Fridays. We always think of Sunnah in those limited senses, but we don't think of Sunnah as higher level things. How to present. The Prophet ﷺ had an amazing presentation style. If you look at it, many of the Prophet ﷺ's hadiths, you could tweet them because they're so short. They're concise. So we should look to the seerah and see how we can learn presentation tips from the Prophet ﷺ, and I'll talk about that more towards the end. So step 1, simplify your slides. The slides, the PowerPoint, the Prezi that you take in to the presentation has to be of the highest quality. Because if it's boring, then you've lost your audience from day one. You've heard of death by PowerPoint? Well, that's what that means. This is Morpheus. What if I told you that reading a PowerPoint aloud isn't the same thing as teaching? It's not the same thing as presenting, although many of us mistake it. Here's an example. The slide on the left is a typical slide that you find in hospitals and in lecture theaters up and down the country. A title and bullet points. And the presenter will read out those bullet points. And the audience will either try to listen to the presenter and ignore the slide, in which case, why did you make it? Or they'll read the slide and ignore the presenter, in which case, why are you here? You might as well just have emailed them the slides. That's the big problem here. However, this slide on the right is just an image. Say no to multitasking. Now, if I'm talking about multitasking with this image in the background, can you see how that is a much more powerful tool? Because now you have audio and visual. I'm the audio, the slide is a visual. It's not audio and it's not me being the audio and you reading the slide as well, which you can't do both at the same time. So you have to choose. Simplify your slides. In fact, I make it my personal mission to almost have no bullet points ever in any of my slides. The only thing bullets are used for is for killing people. So you should not have bullet points in your slides. You should just have a picture. And you should spend time getting the best picture that you can. The better the picture, the better that people will understand. Here's an example. Which is more memorable? If I gave you this slide and I talked about childhood obesity, it affects 17% of all children in the US. It triples the rate. The rate is tripling now from one generation ago. Only 40% of children meet recommended activity. I'm literally reading this slide to you. Does this slide have an effect? Or if I said the same things with this slide in the background, which one will have more of an effect? Of course, this one. You can't help but look at it. It's grotesque. These kids, they're not only morbidly obese already, but they're having a Big Mac. It makes my point. So now when I say that it's affecting 17% of all children in America and it's a really big health risk, you're taking it seriously. You'll remember it. There's that famous saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Why would you use 1,000 words when you could use one picture? And everyone knows in this day and age, a movie clip is 1,000 pictures. So one movie clip is worth 1,000,000 pictures. Do the maths. It makes sense. So number one, you must make your presentation look beautiful. Not beautiful in terms of the background. That's good too. The pictures. Use pictures. Pictures. Not words, not bullet points. Use pictures so that people see what you mean. Number two, stand up and speak up. You can't see me right now, but I'm not sitting at a table. There is no useful or beneficial lecture that is delivered sat down and in a quiet tone of voice. It's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to deliver the khutbah standing up. Everyone remembers. Every time the Prophet ﷺ delivered a khutbah sitting down, pretty much it's been written down that the Prophet ﷺ was sitting when he gave this one. And mostly because he was tired or it was towards the end of his life in his final illness. ﷺ. Sitting is not a way of engaging your audience. If you're just sat there, just around the table like everyone else, you can't see your audience. You can't see them sleeping next to you. You can't see them looking quizzical. You're not going to be able to project yourself. And you are literally relaxing. There's a new saying. I was with Abu Productive from Productive Muslim, and he said that there's a new saying in America, sitting is the new smoking. It's actually unhealthy to sit down for prolonged periods. So stand up and speak up. Walk, move. If the blood is rushing through you, if it's pumping through you, if you're bouncing up and down off the stage, they are watching, they're getting some of that energy. It's being transmitted in your voice to them. But if you're sat down قال الله تعالى, في كتاب الحديث, you're literally talking in a monotone voice. Your voice is not going up or down, it's just monotone. It's and they're strained to hear you. They'll just stop listening. You become background noise. Stand up and speak up. Malcolm X said, if you want to get anything in this world, you better make some noise. You don't have to shout, but sound like you're talking with passion. Look like you're talking with passion. People will actually listen. So step 1, make sure your presentation slides are amazing. And step 2 is stand up and speak up. Step 3, entertain your audience. There is no audience in the world that does not want to be entertained. It doesn't matter how serious they are. It's human nature to want entertainment. And we have excellent content for our F1 induction course. But you can make the same content boring, and you can make the same content incredibly funny. I'll give you an example. You could talk about how to take sick leave. Okay, audience, so it's important that when you take sick leave that you just tell everyone and inform the relevant individuals so that they know that you're taking sick leave, and so that it doesn't create any trouble. It's important for us to do that, otherwise you might get into trouble. That could be one way of talking about sick leave. Monotone, speaking in general sense, there's no specifics, and it's not entertaining. Or you could tell them a story. Say, listen, when I was an SHO, I remember one of my F1s, I had 2 F1s. Both of them called up for sick leave at different times. One of them, he called one of the other F1s and just left a text message saying, not coming in today, not feeling well, ... That's it. He didn't tell me. He didn't tell the registrar. He didn't tell the consultant. He didn't tell the consultant secretary. He didn't tell what illness he had. So everyone was like, this guy's a waster. This guy's just wasting our time. He's just lying in bed. He's having a duvet day. And we're getting angry. We don't know. Is he coming tomorrow? Who knows? He's sick. Who knows what sickness means? He's probably catching up on his movies or something. And people are getting frustrated halfway through the day because someone's like, well, I haven't seen him. Where is he? He's sick. Why didn't he tell me? Oh, he told the house officer, but the house officer didn't tell you. And the second house officer that I had, she called in sick. She said, I'm really sorry, I've got food poisoning. I anticipate I'll be off Wednesday, Thursday, and most likely Friday. And I will keep you updated every day. And I've also informed the registrar, and I've told the consultant secretary, I do apologize. If there's anything I could do here, please, here's my number. Do call me. No one was upset with her. That guy took 1 day off. She took 3 days off. Everyone was happy with her. And when she came back, how are you? Are you feeling well? Are you sure you want to come back? You can come back on Monday. Don't worry. Don't come back on Friday. Take it easy. With him, it's like, where have you been, you loser? Do you see how I've told you the same thing about sick leave in 2 different ways, but one, I've personalized it and I've made it slightly entertaining and it's relevant to them. Entertain them. Give them a moment that they can remember or relate to. Here's an example of Steve Jobs giving the speech where he was introducing the MacBook Air. And you've never seen a video of a laptop being launched because they don't launch laptops. They just put it on the newspaper. It's £700, buy it. £300, buy it. But when he launched the MacBook Air, they make videos of this and they're still played on YouTube. He gave his presentation about how the MacBook Air is important and awesome and it's desirable. And the whole time behind him on a desk where people couldn't see, he had an envelope. And then he picks this up and just watch the reaction of the crowd. Take it out here. Oh my God. This is the new MacBook Air. And you can get a feel for how thin it is. Yeah, there it is. Do you see how he could have just told them it was light, or just shown it to them. But the fact he took it out of an envelope, you could even hear one guy going, "Oh my God." Give them a moment they can remember. There was when Bill Gates did his TEDx talk about malaria, because he's so into trying to eradicate malaria, he gave his talk, and then he said, "But why should all the poor people have the fun of malaria?" And he pulled out a little tube, and he goes, "Here are 2 mosquitoes with malaria." And he opened it, and he let them out into the audience. Obviously, Bill Gates can do that because he doesn't have to worry about being sued. He can pay off as much as he wants. But people remember that. Then they're like, whoa, I'm going to take this seriously. Each of your presentations, whether it's about ST applications, whether it's about ward rounds, have a moment that makes them sit up, that makes them stand up, that makes them remember, that entertains them. You know, it can just be a joke. It could be a meme. And that would be fine. But you could try to do more than that. You should have jokes anyway. Every few minutes, I went to a medical workshop, all day long course. I noticed every 15 minutes, these guys are amazing presenters, by the way. Every 15 minutes, they literally threw in a joke or an video advert that was a joke. Every 15 minutes, because the audience, as soon as the audience, their attention span is going down, bang. Here's another joke, here's another video, attention level up again, then they continue, again, as soon as it's going down. I never learned so much in one course. Make sure that you entertain your audience. If they go out of that room feeling bored, if they look bored, if they're yawning or half asleep, you have failed. If they're like pumped up and excited and just have this energy, they're like, that was awesome, then you know you're winning. They're remembering things. So, step 4, be clear. What do I mean by that? How many presentations do we go to? How many lectures have we sat through? How many khutbahs have we listened to that we're not quite sure what they want from us? There's some, you know, they're saying things and we're nodding away, but what did they want from me? And sometimes in lectures, especially in medical school, you know what to listen for, right? Because the lecturer will say, and if you remember nothing else today, and then you're like, okay, wake up. Somebody, at that moment, 100 highlighters or pens come out, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to remember because I haven't remembered anything else today. Be clear. Clarity is absolutely vital. So always be clear, what is your call to action? What do you want from your audience? For me, what I want from you all is to up your presentation game. I want each one of us to develop our presentation skills so that we can deliver memorable presentations to our audience. Why? Because if we give amazing presentations, they will be attracted to the project and to Bima and to being more practicing, inshallah, and to being more active and to being more socially engaged so that we can use Muslim medics to drive change for the Muslim community and beyond. It starts here. It starts with a good presentation. So always end with a clear call to action. What is the clear call to action? What do you want from them? You know, so again, Steve Jobs would always end with, you know, this is the iPhone, buy it. It's easy for him, right? MacBook Air, you want it. iPod, whatever. It's always clear what the end of the presentation is. You know, I wish our khutbahs were like that. At the end of the khutbah, it would be like, right, I've talked to you for about 25 minutes about the miswak. The call to action is go and buy a miswak and use it at least every time you go to the masjid. You know, like then people might actually do something instead of just listening, going, yeah, miswak, awesome. Okay, fine, I'm going home. You know, if you have a clear call to action, people will listen. So when you're doing your presentation on the ward round, then be very clear. There's a saying, a good tip for presenters: tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell it to them, then tell them what you just told them. 3-peat. And the Prophet ﷺ used this, right? So if I was going to do the presentation of the ward round, I would say, guys, I'm going to tell you about how doing a word round is more like being in a play or being in a movie than it is anything else. And then you talk to them about it, and then at the end you say, did you see how it's this is an art form? You have to, you deliver a word round. This is your word round. It's a work of art. And and therefore I want you guys to implement some of these points. Make sure that your word round from now on is your presentation to your team, or something along those lines. But make it crystal clear each time you present what you want to, and you don't give them a laundry list. So make sure you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nobody's going to remember that. What's the call to action? What is your call to action? And make it absolutely crystal clear. Finally, so we've talked about step 1, which is making your presentation slides amazing. We've talked about step 2, which is standing up and speaking up. We've talked about step 3, which is over here about entertaining people. We talked about step 4, which is being clear. Final step, and this is the most important step of all. Tell your story. Tell your story. Human beings understand stories. If it wasn't the case, then the Quran wouldn't be full of stories. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have just sent us another 10 commandments. Because it is absolutely clear that humans understand things through stories, that's how we should communicate. So tell the story. And no one has as many good stories as medics. We have 1,000 stories about how that ward round was horrendous, 5-hour ward round where you're falling asleep, and at the end you wanted to admit yourself as one of the patients at the end of it. Or we have a story about how not getting your patient handover sheet correct meant that you thought that the person X in that in bed 24 had breast cancer when it was actually a man, and he didn't have breast cancer, and how it led to so much horrendous difficulties and a complaint. We have stories all over the place. Use stories. Share the stories, because you'll tell them something and they might listen, but when you tell a story, they'll understand. So humans share stories. This is a quote from Maya Angelou that I like. I've learned that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So always share stories. For every part, have a story, and then make the lesson out of it, rather than lots of points that don't make sense. In conclusion, practice makes perfect. Practice it. This is your tool. The slides are, by and large, they're made. The audience is coming. The poster is made. This is it. The difference between a talk where people come and they don't tell any of their friends about it, and they don't come back for taking part in other projects, and one in which they attend and it's life-changing, and they make sure they phone the people in the year below them and say, you must come to this one next year, and I'm getting involved in this project, and sign me up today, is how well you deliver the presentation. That's the difference. And I want to conclude with the words of the Prophet ﷺ. Buraidah ibn Hasib radiallahu anhu said that the Prophet ﷺ said, in eloquence there is magic, in knowledge there is ignorance, in poetry there is wisdom, and in speech there is heaviness. I want to draw your attention to that first line. In eloquence there is magic. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us eloquence in our speech and help our words reach the hearts of the people that we're presenting to, so that we can begin to change the situation of our people and our community and the world. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, wa jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.